Thank you, Dan. Are we live streaming?
Yes, Paulina, we're now live.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the joint meeting of the Scrutiny Committees. I would like to start by welcoming those members of the public and press who are watching the live stream of this meeting through the Council's YouTube page. Due to government guidance on social distancing, this meeting is taking place remotely in accordance with current legislation which makes provision for remote attendance at and remote access to council meetings. The meeting is also following the Peterborough City Council's virtual meeting protocol. Before we move to the first item on the agenda, I will begin by calling the names of all Scrutiny Committee members to establish your presence. When I call out your name, please unmute the microphone and confirm that you are in attendance. Thank you. Councillor Aiken.
Present, Paulina.
Councillor Barkham.
Present, Paulina.
Councillor Bisbee. I don't think Councillor Bisbee has arrived yet. Councillor Sandra Bond.
Present.
Councillor Brown.
Present, Paulina.
Councillor Burbidge.
Present, thank you.
Councillor Casey.
Present.
Councillor Coles.
Present.
Councillor Day.
Present.
Councillor Dowson.
Can you hear me? Yes.
Thank you, Councillor
Okay.
Dowson. Councillor Ellis.
Present.
Councillor John Fox.
Present.
Councillor Judy Fox.
Present.
Councillor Jones.
Here.
Councillor Harper.
Present.
Councillor Haynes.
Present.
Councillor Hemraj. I don't think Councillor Hemraj has arrived yet. Councillor Howard.
Good evening, present.
Councillor Howell.
Present.
Councillor Amjad Iqbal.
Present.
Councillor Jamil.
In attendance.
Councillor Lane.
Present.
Councillor Over.
Present.
Councillor Robinson.
Present.
Councillor Rush.
Present.
Councillor Sanford.
I'm here.
Councillor Simons.
Present.
Councillor Skibstead.
Present.
Councillor Warren.
Present.
Councillor Wiggin.
Present.
And Councillor Yazeen.
Present, thank you, Paulina.
Councillor Shaz Nawaz is also in attendance as Labour Group Leader and will be able to take part in the debate but not allowed to vote. Councillor Nawaz.
Present.
I'll now call out the names of the cooperative members also in attendance. If you could confirm your presence, please. Councillor Kingsley.
Present.
Rizwan Rahmatullah.
Present.
Parish Councillor Neil Boyce.
Present.
Parish Councillor Keith Leavesley.
Present.
Parish Councillor June Ball.
Present.
Parish Councillor James Hayes.
Present.
And Peter Cantley, Statutory Education Co-optee.
Present.
Thank you. Thank you. I will now move on to the first item on the agenda, which is the appointment of the chairman or chairwoman for the joint meeting of the Scrutiny Committees, which is in accordance with Part 4, Section 8, Scrutiny Committee Procedure Rules, Section 13, Joint Meetings of Scrutiny Committees, which states that the chairman will be appointed from among the chairman and chairwomen of the committees who are holding the meeting. Those chairs present tonight are Councillor Harper, Chair of Growth, Environment and Resources Scrutiny Committee, Councillor Simons, Chair of Adults and Community Scrutiny Committee, and Councillor Aiken, Chair of Health Scrutiny Committee. Can I therefore ask the committee if there are any nominations? Please raise your virtual hand if you wish to speak. I note, Councillor Haynes, you have your hand raised. Are you nominating somebody, please?
No, Paulina, sorry. I didn't actually get to respond to my name. I think Councillor Hayes answered twice on my behalf. So just for the future, I don't want any confusion.
Okay.
You might just, be careful. Sorry, that's why my hand was raised earlier.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you, noted. Councillor Bisbee, I notice you've got your hand raised.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to nominate Councillor Harper, if that's okay.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that nomination? Councillor Rush? Councillor Rush, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, sorry, I had it wrong. Yes, I would like to second that nomination. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I therefore ask, are there any further nominations for this appointment? Please indicate by raising your virtual hand now. Councillor Over, you wish to speak? No, you don't. Councillor Over, no, you don't wish to speak? Okay, so I see there are no further nominations. As there are no further nominations, can I ask the committee if there are any objections to the nomination of Councillor Harper as chairman for this meeting? If so, could you raise your hand now, please? I can't see any objections. I see no formal objections. So could I therefore ask Councillor Harper to take the position of chairman for this meeting? Thank you. Councillor Harper.
Thank you very much, Paulina, and thank you everybody for the nomination and for allowing me to take the chair tonight. Welcome to the joint meeting of the Scrutiny Committees, and thank you for appointing me as the chair. The purpose of this meeting is to provide an opportunity for all members of each Scrutiny Committee to scrutinise the medium-term financial strategy Phase 1 proposals document as part of the formal consultation process before being presented to Cabinet on the 30th of November for approval and recommendation to full council on the 9th of December 2020. You will have been sent a running order for this meeting, which I will follow throughout the meeting. In order for the meeting to run smoothly, I ask several things of you and the participants. Firstly, that you keep your video camera switched on with your microphone muted except when you're invited to speak. If you wish to speak, then please raise the virtual hand, which is the blue hand and is located at the bottom of your participants section. Please, when asking questions, state which document you are referring to and what page and what section. The documents to be discussed can be accessed through ModGov or ModernGov and the Council's website. You will have been sent a link to the agenda for tonight's meeting. I and the Democratic Services team will keep an eye on the participants list to see who wishes to speak. Please be patient if you are not invited to speak as soon as you have raised your hand, as there may be other people wishing to speak before you. The Democratic Services team will be monitoring the participants list to see if anyone has dropped out of the meeting, and should this happen, they will try and contact you to provide assistance, so you can rejoin the meeting later on. Should we run into technical problems, I ask for your patience. Should this occur, an adjournment of the meeting will be declared while the fault is addressed, and the public broadcast will then be paused. If it is not possible, the meeting will be adjourned until such time as it can be reconvened. Finally, I would remind members that all virtual meetings are recorded. For the benefit of those of you watching this meeting on YouTube, I can confirm that the Leader of the Council, Councillor John Holditch, and all Cabinet members are also in attendance at this meeting, and our Chief Executive Gillian Beasley with her senior leadership team are also on hand to assist Cabinet members in responding to any questions. I will now move on to item 1 on the agenda. Are there any apologies for absence? Paulina?
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, we have apologies received from Councillor Goodwin, Councillor Quayam, and Councillor Amjad Iqbal is attending as substitute. Apologies have been received from Councillor Ali, and Councillor Jones is attending as substitute. The following education co-optees, Flavio Vitesse and Claire Watchford, have also submitted apologies, and co-opted member Parish Councillor Susie Lucas and Parish Councillor Dr. Sridhar have also submitted apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulina. Are there any item 3, are there any declarations of interest and whipping declarations? No. We will now move to agenda item 4, the medium-term financial strategy 2021 to 22 to 2023 to 24, phase 1 proposals. Please refer to the cover report for this item and Appendix 1, which is the medium-term financial strategy phase 1 proposals document. This has also been sent out to all members as a separate PDF document. Councillor Seaton, would you like to make your introduction to the medium-term financial strategy phase 1 proposals as referred to in the Cabinet report dated the 26th of October 2020, pages 1 to 30, and the cover report for item 4 of the agenda for this meeting?
Thank you, Chair, and yes, I'd very much like to. Members, this is a critical time for local government. We've played a key role in responding to the pandemic for many months now. However, with that key role has come a changing landscape for all local councils, and I want to set that out for you this evening. At the start of this year, we had a balanced budget for 2020-21, and we had time to address a £2 million gap in 21-22, following our initial identification of £12 million of savings options during the lean reviews. We were confident we could achieve sustainability. Why? Primarily because we believed the fairer funding review would reflect our demographics and growth, but also because we had shown our ability to deliver much larger efficiencies in the past whilst maintaining services. Circumstances for all councils then changed. Indeed, analysis published by the Local Government Association on the national picture identified extra pressures and lost income in excess of £11 billion just this year. A few examples are adult social care pressures, £2.3 billion, £1.6 billion of lost income on business rates, and the same for council tax, and fees and charges income down £2 billion. That will inevitably have a long-term impact, affect base budgets, and make government support, as we've already seen, critical. In addition, there'll be no comprehensive spending review, but rather the local government settlement will be for a single year. That settlement provides a crucial link to next year's plans, as it should give clarity on key areas, including, for example, grants, and whether they have an inflationary or growth uplift. The fair funding review, as I've just said, we're substantially underfunded for a council with our demographics and growth. And it will also tell us council tax referendum limits and any social care precepts. The provisional settlement will give councils a degree of clarity on support from the government and any final deficit amount that needs to be closed. To give further national context to the challenge, as I said at Cabinet and to full council, I recall a BBC survey in June which found that of 173 councils that responded, 158 could not fund services this year. We're not one of those. Indeed, our COVID expenditure to date is 86% funded, and I expect further grant announcements this financial year. We still have a number of months to go. However, it's clear that government support will be needed in future years, as the original projected potential gap next year in Peterborough of £2 million has increased to £36 million. Why? Because the pandemic has impacted both income and expenditure. It's reduced work on efficiency with extra resource demands and project expertise reprioritised critical areas such as supporting those shielding. The needs of vulnerable adults and children has increased. There's increased support to adult providers of care, a decrease in the ability to achieve additional income planned, and decreased receipts for payments owed to the council. There's an increase in demand on corporate services to support the activities and services required during the pandemic. There's redeployment of employees to increase the operational capacity of service delivery and an increased need for communications and analytical work overall. The pandemic has created strains on other longer-term income and expenditure budgets too. I've always sought to be open and honest with members and residents on our financial position, often to the probably personal detriment and a few headlines in the Peterborough Telegraph. And therefore we've gone out to consultation when many other councils have not. It's important we all understand the position so we can deal with it properly. Let's be clear, this situation is entirely due to the pandemic. We are a well-run council, but compared to neighbours, we have specific factors that set us apart. We've got a fast-growing population with an increasing demand for services and complexity of care and support required. We've been consistently one of the fastest growing cities in the country for a number of years now. We have low government funding in comparison to service needed population. However, we also provide services at a low unit cost, and that confirms that we're efficient and we give value for money. External benchmarking shows our unit costs are nearly 12% lower than average. We have a low council tax base, which means any tax increase leads to comparatively lower income. We have a high proportion of Band A and B properties, combined with the 8th lowest average Band D council tax rate. If Peterborough was able to move to the average unitary council tax rate, that's a difference of £136 a year, an increase of 9.7%. It would generate an additional £8 million per year. And whilst low council tax is good for residents, it has meant low levels of usable reserves. Year on year, this council has been able to successfully set a balanced budget. We've never been afraid to seek advice and challenge from external sources. We've constantly challenged ourselves to be efficient and innovative, whilst ensuring services continue to meet the needs of our residents. We've ensured strong controls on expenditure, challenging all recruitment requests, business cases for all expenditure in excess of £10,000. All general expenditure over £1,000 requires our chief finance officer's approval. And we've got continued enhanced budget governance with dedicated boards overseeing the delivery of the budget setting process and monitoring savings delivery. So moving on to our Peterborough Takes Action lobbying activity for 21-22, which is critical. We had held formal talks with MHCLG over several months as they sought to understand the impact of the pandemic on councils across the country. On the 1st of October, we made a formal approach to them. I'm grateful to the group leaders for joining me at short notice to be briefed on that. Why did we make that formal approach? Simply because government had signalled that, having originally just wanted to focus on councils with in-year issues, they were prepared to expand that to future years. We believed moving swiftly was the right thing to do. stating our case for funding to ensure that local services meet statutory and legal obligations, the council can meet the ongoing challenges of COVID, and our recovery plans are funded so we can build back better. Thankfully, the response from government was immediate and positive. I believe the response we had was within 30 minutes of us sending the request. It's clearly encouraging that they're working closely with us as we support our community through the tough times caused by the pandemic. We've suggested a number of solutions to bridge the immediate funding gap for both the council and wider local government prior to addressing the underlying medium-term funding shortfall, and that's all set out in the papers before you. But we also need to play our part, hence the proposals under scrutiny tonight. Thank you, Chair. Very happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillor Seaton, members of questions, please. Co-opted Parish Councillor June Bull.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Seaton, for that comprehensive explanation. Just got a couple of questions, if I may. It's good to see the reserves increase from 7.1 million to 12.8 million. Am I right in thinking the Chancellor's one-year spending review is due the 25th of this month, and that this might bring further good news? And my second question is, will capitalisation direction awarded in March of this year continue into 2023-24, given the projected 3-year deficits that we have of 35.6 million, 36.6 million, and also 38.5 million with the final 3-year period? Thank you.
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, the increase in reserves from the paper in front of you is because I mentioned at full council, the government had announced another £1 billion for, I think it's £1.5 billion for local government. They kept 500 million back for some of the councils in the north who are having particular problems. We're in the high tier. So £1 billion came to the rest of us. We received 5.7 million. That was more than we expected. It was a higher percentage of previous announcements that they'd made. And so I think it is reflective of some of the discussions we've been having with government. Yes, the spending review is on the 25th. I think it will just be a one-year figure. Pete Carpenter might just want to add to that particular point.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Seaton. Yes, the funding statement for all of government this year is only going to be 1 year, and that comes out in a couple of weeks. We will then get the provisional local government settlement probably 2 to 3 weeks after that. That's usually what has happened in the past. In terms of a question on capitalisation direction, we were given the capitalisation direction last year for a specific purpose in order to move the council to an ongoing sustainable budget. Evidence so far is suggestive that the government aren't giving as many capitalisation directions this year. They're trying to mend things in different ways. However, that might change. And I know, although, as Councillor Seaton has said, we've talked to MHCLG already. There are a number of other councils that are now talking to MHCLG. And as they get a better view of what the proper issues are in local government across the board, they might do slightly different things than they are now.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Peter.
Just confirm, if I may, Mr. Chairman, so that capitalisation direction is only effective for this one single year?
Yes, so it's spread over 2 years because it was linked to our budget plans in the MTS last year. It's about 6 million in 1920 and 1.2 million in this financial year.
Grateful, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it might be interesting if I just share one way in which the government's addressed things. Many will be aware of Luton, who have got a very big problem because they take a very large dividend each year from the airport. I think one of the ways that they've been told to deal with it is to give a big loan to the airport, so the airport can give them a big dividend back. So there are some interesting ways of trying to deal with the issues out there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Seaton. Councillor Yazin. No. I'll move on and come back. Councillor Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, Councillor Seaton. Thanks for that. Are there any cuts, or which cuts are going to need to be made in order for us to reach a balanced budget if the government don't come good with additional funding?
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. And I think the only way we're going to balance the books next year is with additional funding. So as I set out, I think there'll be a point where we need clarity from government on how much that additional funding is and how much we're going to have to find. And I think that is something we'll have to bring forward next March. So at the moment, I would be speculating as to what that will be. I think there's a lot of uncertainty around at the moment. There's a very positive response to the vaccine announcement, but we just don't know the situation that the economy will be in come next March. So very difficult and quite speculative at the moment to know exactly how much we might have to find as a council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. May I just ask a quick supplementary question just on the current situation? Has the current lockdown, has this had any additional impact on our finances since it was declared? I mean, has it suddenly plunged us further into chasis, or is it something that we've been preparing for, knowing that we're on a precipice anyway? Has it made a difference, the second lockdown?
I think that there's 2 points there. One is it's too early to say. It's a moving picture. Actually, some of the council tax income, business rates income is slightly better than we were expecting, our latest figures show. So it's quite difficult to judge how things are moving. However, it is the case, of course, that the government's announced some quite significant payments to businesses. They've extended furlough to next March. So there are some positive things there that should help local residents, should help local businesses, and should help the council. Peter, did you want to add something to that?
No, I think Councillor Seaton has summed it up. There are a range of additional benefits for both businesses and now some for individual people as well, which has come out over the last week. Guidance always lags slightly behind the announcements, but obviously we'll now strive to get that funding out to businesses and people in the community as quickly as possible. I think one of the issues, which is always additional work, no matter which part of the council that's delivering it, is the fact that there's always things in the regulations that say, and how are you checking that these people are valid for this part of money? And that's the bit we just have to be careful on. But it's really positive that we've been, awarded another £6.7 million worth of funding for business, and some of that's to last to April. But, that can only be positive for the community of Peterborough.
So I think, Chair, there will be an announcement from the council, I believe tomorrow, as to how businesses go about applying for those funds. And then, as Pete said, there is some discretionary funding, and we're working to see exactly how that will be applied. And I think that will be announced over the next couple of weeks. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Thank you, Peter. Councillor Yazin, I'll come back to you. Do you want to ask a question?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, I had some technical difficulties. Thank you, Councillor Seaton, for your report. My question is, how confident are you that you'll be able to prepare a balanced budget?
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Councillor Yassin. Two parts there. I mean, certainly, I think this year we've got a balanced budget. As I said, next year, I don't think that without government funding, we would be able to get to a balanced budget. I think that is going to be the case for the vast majority of councils in this country. But for example, we've already had 86% of our COVID spend this year funded by the government. Do I expect that there will have to be further funding next year? Yes, absolutely certain. Absolutely certain. The big question for us is exactly how much that will be. How much is it from government? How much does, as Councillor Jones just mentioned, how much of it will have to be found from Peterborough City Council? That's the balance. I don't think we'll know probably until the end of this year, early next year, exactly what that balance is. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Thank you, Councillor Seaton, for your question. Councillor Iqbal, please.
Thank you, Chair, and through you. I have three questions, Chair, if that's okay. Councillor Seaton, thank you very much for your report, firstly. You spoke about the lean cost, and my question to you is that why have the lean cost review possible savings of 11.9 million reduced to 2.6 million? Do you want to answer that question, or do you want me to ask all three questions in one go?
I think we'll go one at a time, please. Councillor Seaton.
I think I covered that off in my introductory remarks. To give you an example, you have a certain degree of resource available to deliver savings projects. We have had to move that resource into things like creating the hub, putting in place all the shielding. You therefore don't have it available to deliver the lean savings. We have had to reprioritize staff into different work areas. So I mentioned increased analytics is required. So there's been a whole series of things where at a time like this, it would be, I think, a really irresponsible thing to do to make efficiency savings when you need that extra resource to address all the problems that the pandemic has thrown up. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Iqbal. Your second question, please.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Seaton, in your report, you spoke about the meeting with the MHCLG. Where exactly is the council in conversations with the MHCLG?
Councillor Seaton.
So where are we in conversations? Well, I think most of it's over Zoom. We met with them. Our formal request went in on the 1st of October. We had had a number of informal meetings from them before that. They were just seeking information on how councils were coping, and they were talking to councils all over the country. We emailed that request in on the 1st of October. They responded within 30 minutes, and within, I think, a week, we had sat down with them face to face. They asked us, we provided quite a lot of information to them already as part of that initial formal request. And so they asked for, the way this works is government likes templates. Right, here are some templates, fill some templates in and send them back to us. So our finance director will be meeting with them again next Monday, where we will be presenting to them what we have produced so far and saying to them, does this meet your expectations? Is there something else we might be missing? Are we delivering as you require? So that will be the next step. Peter, did you want to add something to that?
I'd just say, just to follow on for what Councillor Seaton's saying, the initial discussions with M8CLG are finance director to finance director. So they've got a whole lot of information that they have collected from local authorities over the last 7 months. So we've been doing some very detailed returns to local government on a monthly basis. So they've got a background of information. Additionally, with Peterborough, we had the capitalisation direction last year and we had to give a whole lot of additional information for that. What they've asked for is us to say, or to spell out what a viable council financially is for Peterborough, and what we are checking on Monday is the way we're doing the data is exactly as they need. Then we can move it along, go through the right internal channels to make sure that we validate all the information properly. But we've got, if you like, a straw doll. We just want to make sure it's exactly as they want it.
Okay, thank you very much, both.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And my final question is section 6.3, page 22 to 23. How confident are the council that the 35 million gap is the final figure?
I've tried to set out how I think this is a moving feast. We all know, just from the way the pandemic's worked, big issue in March and April, very low during the summer, and it's suddenly come back, but it's come back differently in Italy than it has in the UK or France or other countries in the world. So exactly what impact that pandemic will have, if you could tell me whether the vaccine will work and will be rolled out at the start of December, if you could tell me that actually everyone will be going back into businesses in January, then I could be far more certain about the size of the challenge. I've already mentioned one example where I said our council tax and business rates income is actually better than I thought it would be. Now, it may go the other way. It may keep improving. But a lot of that is speculation. When we get to phase 2, January, February time, I think we'll have a lot clearer picture on the size of that eventual challenge. My take at the moment, we have been quite cautious in our forecasting. And I've worked on that with our finance director. We have been cautious. My take at the moment is I do not think it will get worse. I think our assumptions are still looking robust.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Councillor Sandford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think we are in a very serious situation, so I don't want to be in any way frivolous about this. But I think, you know, what Councillor Seaton was saying is that the phase 1 budget proposals go some way towards addressing the problem. But I think if you look at the figures that are actually quite well displayed on page 49, that, you know, we started off with a projected budget gap of 14.25 million, and we're proposing savings of 2.6, but there's actually 24 million pounds of budget pressure, so we're actually ending up projecting a budget deficit of 35.5. Now, yes, I think it is you know, the actual evidence is that government is coming forward with additional funding to help us tackle the COVID situation. And I think the last tranche of funding they produced a few weeks ago gave us an extra 5 million. But, you know, are we absolutely confident that central government is going to bail us out to the tune of an additional 35 million? And if we can't be confident of that, I actually recall that earlier this year, when we had the previous medium-term financial strategy, and what Councillor Seaton said at that point was the council was going to embark on a fundamental review of how it delivers services to try and deliver savings. Is that process actually going to happen? And you know, I think from what Councillor Seaton was saying, he was saying that we may not know till January or February how much money government is going to give us, but you know, but that will only be like 1 month before we have to set a final budget. So could I just ask, you know, is there any contingency planning being carried out just in case, you know, central government isn't as generous and forthcoming as perhaps Councillor Seaton appears to be hoping?
Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Councillor Sanford. I think it's a really fundamental mistake to try and make comparisons between where we were last March and where we are now. You know, we had, Councillor Sanford's just mentioned a £14 million gap. Lean Review found 12 million. We got 12 million, sorry, we got 12 months to find the other £2 million. So I was confident we were in a good position to hit a sustainable position. With regards to next year and government funding, let me just restate that the COVID pressures this year of, I'm trying to remember, about 38 million, peak up, so I'm sure, correct me. We've been given 86% of that by government. So I think there is a reason for me to be confident that there will be fair additional funding coming our way. I'm also confident that we can make a very clear, unambiguous case to government for fairer funding. I think there was some external work undertaken by a university at one point looking at government funding of councils, which actually said we should be getting substantially more in grant income than we have been in the past. And that would have sorted the position we were in March without any problem at all. So I think there are reasons to be positive. But as I've said a number of times in this meeting, there's no doubt the next year the government will need to provide extra funding, and it will need to provide extra funding to probably the majority of councils in this country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Seaton.
Okay, can I just come back with one other question?
Yes, please. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think obviously, you know, we're going to have to wait and see what's going to happen. But I think, you know, some degree of, I would hope some degree of contingency planning was going on, just in case the government isn't as forthcoming as we're perhaps hoping. Just looking at the £24 million of budget pressures that have been identified. Now, I absolutely accept that some of them are due to COVID, you know, adult social care and things like that. But one of them that's not due to COVID is the actual Aragon one. Now, obviously, you know, lots of our constituents like to see the streets clean and they like to see the grass cut and that sort of thing. But quite a lot of these services that Aragon provides for us are what you would call discretionary services. So if the council were to find itself in a hard place and were to have to deliver, you know, some additional savings, it's not inconceivable that some of the services that Aragon provides may have to come forward with some of those savings. So what my question is, you know, we're actually going to have to wait till January to see what our financial predicament actually is. So why, sort of at this point, are we basically giving Aragon almost like a blank check? Or is there a possibility that at some future point you're going to be going back to them and taking away some of their additional funding?
Thank you. Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Chair. I don't think I'd ever give anyone a blank cheque. Certainly won't give Aragon a blank cheque. There is an item later on in the consultation document which covers the extra funding for Aragon, and I would suggest that maybe better that, you know, James, who's on the call, or Councillor Farouk answers that, and if we wait till then, perhaps they'll have time to think of a really good response. Just to come back to a couple of points you made, Councillor Sanford, you said we'll have to wait and see, and I was very clear about that, because when we get the settlement from Treasury, we all know, and from the discussions we're having with MHCLG, I was quite clear, the council has to play a part here as well, but we need to understand how big that part is. And you talk about contingency planning. You know, what would you like me to contingency plan for? Would you like me to contingency plan for an extra 10 million of savings or 20 million of savings? I mean, you won't be involved because you dropped off the cross-party budget working group where we used to have those sorts of discussions. We could talk cross-party about that contingency planning, and you've got off the bus. You're not part of it. But if you tell me what size of contingency planning you'd like, you know, I'd be interested. And maybe you could put forward a few suggestions as to how you think that could be found.
Okay, well, I'm sure that will come a bit later. Thank you very much. Councillor Skipstead.
Thank you, Chair. My question is in relation to page 26 regarding the consultation, and that was, has the feedback been received, and what is the feedback on the budget consultation? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Skipstead. No, that consultation is ongoing, and we'll summarise it all when we have the cabinet meeting, which I think Pete Carpenter set out the date, and then you'll see an updated set of consultation responses for full council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nawaz, please.
Thank you, Chair. I have a few questions, if I may, and following from what Councillor Sanford said, I think it is a very serious situation. So we obviously want to be as supportive as we can, but at the same time, obviously, I know Councillor Seaton would agree. If I didn't ask him some searching and challenging questions, then I wouldn't be doing my job properly.
Sorry, Chair, I'm having a little bit of difficulty hearing Councillor Nawaz. Maybe he's got a running faucet or something. Quite a strange noise going on.
Councillor Nawaz, I'm afraid we can't hear you very well. I don't know. It just seems to be a sound.
Is that better?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I'll start again. Apologies, Chair. I said I would obviously like to be as supportive as I can, but at the same time, I'm sure Councillor Seaton understands that I also have to ask some challenging questions, and I'm sure he'd agree if I didn't. I wasn't doing my job properly. So the questions I'm asking is not to be awkward, but it's just to get an explanation and better understanding of exactly where we are. And to start off, and I know, Councillor Seaton, you've said that there's a 2 million gap and we would have been sustainable, and the situation is entirely due to the pandemic. I think that's not entirely accurate, because when I look at page 7 of the MTFS, it says clearly that obviously in the past the council has successfully balanced the budget, which is of course true, but in doing so it has exhausted all financial measures. So I think lumping it all on the pandemic is inaccurate. But the question really is, if we've exhausted all financial measures and the additional government funding doesn't come through, just so I'm clear, what are the next steps for us? What's going to happen?
Okay. Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Councillor Nawaz. Yeah, challenging times, challenging questions. If you've been part of the budget working group, that cross-party budget working group, we could have had those discussions over the last few months. Yes, it says exhausted things, but we've exhausted a lot of the one-off things. And I know you as a accountant, tax avoidance expert would know all about the fact that you can find accounting changes that can help you to balance the books. So a lot of the things we did were one-offs, and that's what we've exhausted. You know, I think that it was a fair comment to say that with a £14 million gap at the start of the year and 12 million of lean savings identified and £2 million to find in 12 months, we were actually in a very good position. I don't think that's unreasonable to say. It has been tough finding those savings. I'm sure officers would agree with that. But as you said, we've done it year on year. We've had a sustainable budget year on year. As regards what happens if the government does not come up with funding, well, I think you'll have seen today with your Labour colleagues in Croydon who have just gone bust. They've issued a 114 notice. But actually the difference there is they've said it's not down to COVID, it would have happened anyway. So that's where councils will be. But I'd repeat the point I've made a number of times. The majority of councils are in this position. We are not alone. So government will have to come up with a solution working with us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Rice, you had the question?
Yes, I've got a few more, but I'll just address that point that Councillor Seaton made. In terms of obviously not being on the cross-party budget working group, I have said to you before, Councillor Seaton, you could still arrange a meeting. You were kind enough at very short notice.
Councillor Nawaz, it's for questions, please, if you would, because we do need to move on. So can we have the question?
That's fine, Chair, but sometimes Councillor Seaton, I find, makes inappropriate references. So as Chair, I'd expect you to, at that point, intervene and ask them to stay objective, please. Page 9 of the report, which I was very pleased to read, Councillor Seaton, says that we've got very low unit costs. What that suggests to me that is we're operating pretty efficiently compared to most of the councils. That then leads me to think, how much additional savings can we find if we're running pretty efficiently already, and if we can't, if there's not that much to be found, and the government funding doesn't come through, what's the backup plan?
Councillor Seaton.
I remember at full council, Councillor Nawaz, you insulted me, then asked for a polite reply. So it goes both ways, doesn't it? That question this evening has been asked by you and your colleagues in a variety of different ways. And I think I've answered it in some detail. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Nawaz.
I don't think that question has been answered, Chair. However, if you do feel, then that's fine.
I think it has been answered, but anyway, maybe you can rephrase it a little bit.
That's fine. I'll move on. I've got another 3 or 4 questions, if I may. That's what I'm here for. So, page 10, Councillor Seaton talks about without the additional funding, the other option is catastrophic service cuts. And just kind of wanted some clarity on what those catastrophic service cuts are, and what you planned in terms of those, and obviously if we're unable to get the funding, just so I'm clear, because I know you kind of alluded to that by talking about Croydon, are we how likely is it that we're getting ready to file a section 114 notice, 1 being not likely at all, 10 being very likely, just so I'm clear?
How can you be, sorry, can I come in? How can you be clear on a 1 to 10 scale? Just as chair, how can you possibly ask that question?
So,
what's a 1 to 10 scale? I mean,
okay, Chair, I've said that. So 1 would be not very likely at all, 10 would be highly likely, just so I can understand.
I think that's not a very good question, but Councillor Seaton, please, if you would like to indulge with a 1 to 10 score.
I actually said in my introductory remarks that the BBC did a survey. I think it was 173 councils, and 158 said they couldn't get through this year. I said, we're not one of those councils. So it's very unlikely we would have to do that this year. I cannot see a circumstance in which we would have to do it. However, you know, I also said in my opening remarks that I want to be open and honest with people. And clearly, you know, Councillor Nawaz, you and your colleagues have asked me so many times, oh, if you don't get extra funding, what's going to happen? And I've said, I'm confident there will be extra funding. But I'm confident across the whole of local government, there will have to be extra funding. But it's absolutely clear that if there isn't, the result could be catastrophic cuts that none of us want to have to deliver. I'm not going to set those out for you. You have been a councillor for a number of years. You know exactly what would happen if we had to cut funding in a lot of the important areas for this council. In fact, every year, I've been cabinet member for a number of years, and every year at full council, when we bring efficiencies forward, I'm told they're catastrophic. So I'm sure you can think of a few. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, can just come in at the moment. We are running well over time because a lot of the questions are at the start. So I'm guessing some of the ones that will be further down the agenda might have been pulled forward. I am going to end question after Councillor Jones. So Councillor Nawaz, you've got more. I think you've got at least another question, and then Councillor Jones, and I am going to end this one then and move it on. Okay, so Councillor Nawaz.
A question on page 12, and I think Councillor Seaton, to be fair to you, I think it probably might be better if this question is answered by Pete Carpenter. Pete, I'm getting the impression that at the moment we're being seen to be trading as a going concern, subject to the funding being approved. If that funding isn't approved, am I right in thinking that then we won't be classed or classified as a going concern? Or have I misunderstood that particular statement on page 12, right at the top, second paragraph?
Thank you, Councillor Raz. In terms of the going concern, as part of the audit of the accounts this year, and the audit committee is on Monday and the papers are out, the National Audit Office have asked our external auditors across the board to look and assess if councils are a going concern or not. In our discussions with our external auditors, they've said, I'll get to the right phrase in a second. They have, I think, material concerns based on the fact that actually, like all other councils, our next year's budget is dependent on the local government settlement. However, the top level of alert for that would be a public interest report, and there's 2 or 3 councils now that have got those. The next level down in terms of an audit point from our external auditors would be a statutory recommendation. At the moment, they're saying we won't have any statutory recommendations. And so we are at that 3rd level down. And I think, you know, a fair question, which I'm asking the auditors all the time, is that like the rest of a lot of the rest of local government? And that's the impression I'm getting at the moment. However, as Councillor Seaton says, and the key to this is going to be what the local government provisional settlement sets out in December and what that gap is, because that leaves us 2.5 months to formulate the difference between that gap and how we move forward to a ongoing sustainable budget for next year. Is that clear enough?
Thank you, Peter, and thank you, Councillor Seaton, and thank you, Chair, for your patience and the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Last one then will be Councillor Jones, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just on a hopefully strike a more positive note, obviously we're talking about cuts and crystal balls and magic wands at the moment. Have we got any sort of contingency, or have we got a plan for income generation? I mean, there's things, you know, maybe I'm happy to take it offline. The thing that concerned me was seeing that spend on digital and customer service is going to be decreased quite substantially in 22, 23 and 23 and 24. And what sort of services and capital spend is likely to be compromised? And yet, as a gigafast city, I would have thought this is an area where perhaps we could have hopefully come out fighting and generated some income to offset some of the deficit we clearly face.
Thank you for the question. Good question. Councillor Seaton.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. You missed the magic money tree. It's always a magic money tree. The reason the spend on digital has reduced is because we've brought back the services that the ICT services that were run by SECO, and we're merging them with the ICT services that were run by for Cambridgeshire County Council. So we think there will be some synergies to be gained, some cost savings to be gained from that merger. But I'm sure as we go through the individual pages of the consultation, I think ICT is there. So if you want to ask the question of Sue Grace and potentially Amanda, I'm sure they'll be happy to respond in a bit more detail. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for your questions on that one. Okay, fair enough. I didn't hear any. I didn't hear any particular recommendations on that one. So, were there any at all? No. Okay, so we're going to move on to item 5 now. Can everyone note that we are considering Appendix A of the Phase 1 proposals, starting on page 31. Councillor Seaton, would you like to introduce this section or go straight to questions?
I think I've talked quite enough, Chair. Very happy to go straight to questions.
Thank you. Any questions, please, committee? No, I don't see any questions, so there will not be any recommendations. I'll then move on to item 6. Item 6, can everyone note that we are now considering Appendix B of the Phase 1 proposals starting on page 33. Councillor Seaton, again, would you like to introduce this section or go straight to questions?
I'm very happy to go straight to questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? No, don't see any of those. There won't be any recommendations. Thank you. I'm going to move on to item 7. Actually, I've got Co-operative Parish Councillor June Bull. Did you want to come in on the last one? Or the new
No,
one?
it's actually Appendix C that you've moved on to.
Right, well, I haven't
Item
introduced
7.
it yet.
Item 7.
I haven't introduced it yet, so can you just hold a minute? Okay, can everyone note that we are now considering Appendix C of the budget proposal starting on page 37. The relevant Cabinet member or lead officer will respond to any questions relevant to their own portfolio or section. Would any Cabinet member like to introduce this, Councillor Seaton, or would you all like to go straight to question? Doesn't appear we've got anybody.
I suspect straight to questions, Chair. Will you take this page by page?
Yes, I can do, yeah. Hold on a second. Okay, so this is item 7. So we're going to start page by page. So we'll go to page 37. Councillor Boyd, are you going on 37 or shall I call you in a bit later?
Later, page 41.
Okay. Right. Okay, nothing on page 37. 38. 39. Councillor Robinson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question is about EHCPs, so it's probably for Councillor Ayres or Jonathan Lewis. So I see it states that our EHCPA has gone up by 40% in 4 years. So even though we've had a population growth, that seems really quite a lot. So I just wanted to ask that, given that sometimes schools, families get to HCP level because they're not getting the services at the lower tier, which I understand have become less and less, and like Jonathan mentioned on Monday night with Ed Psych, early intervention work now being stopped, have we kind of reached a point of a kind of false economy that by schools not having the services at that level, we're now having a really big rise in the HCPs and the big cost that's now generating for the council? Is there anything we can do about that?
Thank you. Who would like to answer that? Is it Jonathan?
Can I say,
Yes,
Chair,
Councillor Ayres.
yes, thank you very much. I don't think that Jonathan Lewis is actually here tonight, but I think Wendy Ogle-Wellborn is and is prepared to answer for on the education and children's services side.
Thank you, councillors. I've got a hand up. Wendy Ogle-Wellborn, please. Then.
Thank you, Councillor Ayres. Yes, Councillor Robinson, I was at the Children's Scrutiny with you on Monday night, obviously. I think this is actually a mixture and this is a national issue. So I think you're absolutely right that we really need to think about whether we can put any more early help services actually across education, care and health. I think that's really important. But also nationally, we are seeing a growth in the complexity of needs in terms of children and young people. And I think you all know one of the growing needs is around the mental health of children. And some positive news we do know is that we are hoping, and it looks quite positive, that we are going to get more funding coming into our schools to support them around the emotional resilience of children, which I think is really positive. But I do think you're right. We do need to look at actually whether we can look at more early help services to prevent some of those EHCPs. But equally, there is definitely a rising complexity at all levels.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, page 40. Councillor Day.
Hi, thank you. On page 40, there are some options presented that talk about allowing us to set a balanced budget for 2021-22, but may give the government the time it needs to adjust national finances, take account of the COVID. So I just wanted to ask, because it talks about providing additional unring-fenced funding for these services. So where will that funding come from? It also talks about allowing the council powers to use debt financing. Can someone explain what that means to me? I'm not quite sure what debt financing is. It also says allowing the council to take a one-year holiday in 21 to 22 on minimum revenue provision payments. I'd like to know what that is, if that's okay. And also to take a one-year holiday on pension fund payments, which won't affect, it says it won't affect current staff in the future, will free up £6 to £8 million. With all of those savings, how much would that total? And is this, you know, how much then would be left to find to plug this, you know, 30 million deficit we're in? So just, sorry, there's quite a few questions there, but I wanted some clarity on some of those things.
All right, thank you.
Peter, do you want to kick off?
Yeah,
On
certainly.
explaining those specific items?
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Seaton. So unring fence funding is what Councillor Seaton has been talking about, which is additional funding from the government, which we will get in the local government provisional finance settlement in about 3 or 4 weeks' time. At the moment, as we all know, funding has been made available for this year, but at the moment we don't know what it might be for next year. Given the council powers to use debt financing, this is what we got last year, which was a capitalisation direction. And what it allows you to do is to treat revenue funding as capital and so defer the costs over a number of years. And we got the approval for a capitalisation direction last year. As I said earlier on, the government aren't quite as keen on that this year as they were last year. And I think we were one of the only councils to get the capitalisation direction last year. And again, it aided us to move towards the a sustainable budget. Minimum revenue provision, the council pays £30 million a year in debt charges. 15 million of that is called minimum revenue provision, which is in reality repayment of capital. 15 million of it is interest charges. Now we have to pay interest charges every year, but the question we've asked of central government, and they would have to approve, is can we defer or not pay minimum revenue provision for a single year? You can only do this for 1 year. Again, there's quite an interesting example of that. I mean, if those of us can remember when the Channel Tunnel was being built, the government refinanced on a number of years. They continued paying interest, but they deferred the capital slightly longer. And that's what we're sort of asking for here. When I've talked to MHCLG about it, they're not overly keen about it. However, when I did my submission to Alex Skinner on the 1st of October, the people we were talking to in MHCLG said, please don't forget to put all of the things you have as ideas. It's possible that although we might not do it as the sector, we might do it for individual councils. And again, we've not heard anything further on that, but we keep flagging this at every meeting.
Peter, sorry, we are live on YouTube, so I think discussions with MHCLG we just need to be cautious about.
Correct.
I'm sure there wasn't anything there that was a problem, but
no, good point, Councillor Seaton. With the pension fund, the council pay a amount of money towards staff's pensions. Staff pay a contribution. At the moment, we have a pension fund which is fully funded over a certain period of time, and the deficit has come down significantly if you look at the statement of accounts this year. This again asks for a 1-year holiday of the council side, which means the repayment period would extend by 1 year. Again, you would need MHCLG and government approval, and also the Cambridgeshire and local authority pension fund approval to do that. The final one, sorry, that's all of them. Yeah.
Yeah, got them all. Thank you very much, Peter. Thank you.
Can I just add to that, Chair? Because
yes.
I think it's an important point that Councillor Day makes, and it does sort of relate back to my answer to some of the questions earlier about how do we address this 36 million. So some of that could be the government putting in specific grant funding for us, or it could be these sorts of one-off things that they could do. So 21-22, they could be supported through extra grant funding, some of these one-offs. Our expectation being that we get to 22-23, the economy is recovering. You know, we're building back better. Income is recovering. Council tax, business rates are recovering. And a lot of the problem we've got over. So I suspect, and perhaps earlier I should have been a little bit clearer, it could be a combination of extra funding from government and these one-off items that will support us to a brighter future. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks for that, Clarity. Councillor Day, you happy with that?
Yeah, can I just ask a quick thing then? I know I asked lots of questions because I'm getting my head around everything. So my final point was, how much would those savings come up to? Do we know how much? Well, I guess we don't, because we don't know about the unring-fenced government funding. But is it something that it's looking like I mean, I've added up the figures you said about 23 million. Is it a consideration that we would raise council tax to get a further 8 million, and then we'll be getting up to our 30 million? I just wondered, you know, I don't know anything about these things, so I'm just asking.
Okay. Councillor Seaton.
I suspect Councillor Newhouse thinks I don't know a lot about them either. I think it is really difficult to know, and Pete Carpenter mentioned this earlier. I think what the government will do are sort of tailored solutions for different councils. So if you're sitting on, and I could mention a council that, you know, is saying, oh, we've got a problem, and is sitting on 600 million of reserves. Right, if you've taken 600 million off residents over a number of years, you're sitting on it, but you've got a problem now between your income and expenditure. The government's going to say, go away. We're in a slightly different position to that. So I think it will be quite specific solutions for different councils. You know, that yes, there's 23 million there. If they allowed us to use debt financing to cover one-off COVID issues, that could be a large amount as well. So there are solutions. The important thing is we're putting those solutions in front of government, and not just on our behalf, but they're solutions that could work across the whole of local government. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Day.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on then from that. So we're now on to page 41, and we'll go straight to Co-optive Parish. Councillor Jim Ball.
My apologies for the earlier confusion, Mr. Chairman. If I could ask a couple of questions related to page 41, bullet points 6 and 7. The government announced that we'd been successful in being awarded £22.9 million from the Towns Fund, and the upper limit at that time was £25 million on applications. That upper limit has since been removed. Can we bid for more to assist our fiscal gap? And my second question is the Hilton loan repayments. When are they likely to start, please, so that we have some revenue generation from a loan that we made to allow that build to go ahead on Fletton Quays? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, shall I cover the Hilton loan first?
Yeah.
It's a stage payment loan, Councillor Ball. So we give the money, we lend the money to Hilton as they complete each stage of the work. And as they've only just started on site, whilst, you know, some of the headlines might have been, we lent them 15 million. No, we haven't lent them, I think it's very little so far. Pete Carpenter could probably tell us when the payments are scheduled. I think the 25 million New Towns Fund is probably a question for Councillor Hiller or Steve Cox.
I've got Steve Cox on at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I'll come in on that one. Yes, the success was 22.9 million. We did secure £1 million of accelerated Towns Fund money in September, so the total was 23.9. I don't think there's any scope to bid for extra funding through this particular process, but what we will do through the Towns Fund Board is look at opportunities now to seek other match funding that we can bring in addition to what we said that we would draw in. And I've already started discussions with the Combined Authority who are interested in coming in and supporting. But we will always keep an eye out for any additional funding. We are working closely with government, and if there is opportunity going forward for additional Towns Fund money to be bid for, then we'll certainly take that opportunity.
Thank you. I've got Peter Carpenter on as well. Peter, do you want to add something?
Yeah, in terms of the loan for the hotel build, obviously we are recouping interest from that loan as we lend the money out as well. And it's only a short-term loan for the development.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Dow, still got your hand up.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, can I just come in with a supplementary there? What's the interest?
Put your hand down, so sorry, I didn't know. So yes, please do. Yes, go ahead.
Can you tell me what the interest rate is on that short-term loan, please?
I can't because it's commercially confidential. However, it has to, and we had to go through state aid rules to make sure that it's compliant.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sanford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On page 41, in the bottom half of the page, there's a list of things that are supposedly successes for Peterborough and for the council. Can I just ask about the fifth bullet point on that page, which is about the relocation of the Peterborough United football ground? Now, I don't want to go into, obviously, this is not the place to go into the land use planning issues, loss of green space on the embankment and that sort of thing. But just looking at the pure finances of it, my recollection is that we paid quite a large amount to purchase the football ground. A lot of people at the time complained we were paying over the odds for it. We've then recently sold the football ground back to the club, and I believe that was for considerably less than what we actually paid for it. But the football ground, the football club aren't going to use it going forward as a football ground. They're going to presumably to flog it off to a housing developer, and we're going to give them a site on the embankment. So it seems to me that's a fantastic financial outcome for the football club, but is it good financial value for the council?
Thank you. Councillor Seaton.
The simple answer is, of course, that what we are selling back to Peterborough United is substantially less in terms of land than we bought when we originally acquired the stadium. So that's point one. Point two is, you said, Councillor Sanford, we're going to give them a site. I'm not aware we're going to give them a site. I'd be interested to know where you got that from. You said they're going to sell it off to housing developers. I'm not aware of what they're going to do with it. Be interested to know where you got that from.
Well, I think one assumes they're not going to retain it as a football ground. The football doesn't require two grounds, does it? I don't think.
Could we go with the question then, please, Councillor Seaton? Is it financially a good idea that Councillor Sanford was asking?
Well, I think the original question was, is selling the football ground to the football club a good idea? Well, we've got independent valuations on it, and we're selling it for what we got the independent valuations for. And I think that's a good deal. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea that councils own football grounds. I think it can be helpful in the short term. I don't think it's a Coventry showed that it's not a good long-term solution for a football club that the council owns their ground. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor
So just
Jamil.
to come back on that, my question, maybe I didn't phrase it properly, was the entire package of what has taken place. Is the council going to make a profit out of that, or is it going to be the football club that makes a profit and we make a loss?
Well, I think again, Councillor Sanford, you asked me to speculate on what the club will do with the site, where the club will move to. You know, in terms of, we bought an asset and we have sold an asset for an independent valuation. I think that's a reasonable deal. If you want to then throw in a whole load of different things that might happen speculatively in the future, it's very difficult for me to comment.
Okay, fair enough. Right, Councillor Jamil then, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question is with the first part of that bullet point about the partnership with Network Rail and LNER with regards to the master plan for around the railway station and the station core, as we keep calling it. Is this, are we putting up the land? Are we actually putting money up? Are we buying up land? What on outlay is it going to be for us? And how, you know, how much do Network Rail and LNER want to play ball? Are they going to put up the money, or are they going to give us the land? How's that deal going to work?
Okay. Who's going to take that one?
Should I take that one, Chairman?
Yeah, Steve, yeah.
Yeah, still, Councillor Jamil, thank you for the question. It's still early days in working through the detail. There's a master plan that's being prepared. The next step with the station quarter is to understand the viability of different aspects of the master plan to see whether as a scheme it works. To answer your question about Network Rail and LNER, yes, they are working very closely with us. They are very ambitious to like we are, to make a change in the station quarter area. They own predominantly most of the land between them, so they are important for us clearly to make the change that we want to see there. But at this stage, the details of what they will be putting in, what we might put in to support the development, needs to await the outcome of the viability assessment on the master plan. One of the important features of the master plan is the connectivity between the station quarter and the city centre, and that's a really important part that will add value generally to the master plan and to the viability assessment.
Thanks, Steve. Thank you. Councillor Sanford, I've still got your hand up. Do you want another question?
No, I didn't really get an answer to the previous one, so there's no point doing any further.
Thank you very much. So we've done 41, we're on to page 42. There's a bit that's on there. Okay, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52. Okay, 52. Councillor Howell, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. It's a couple of questions about bins. One of them is about the brown bin, and I note the comments in the report about the brown bin collections and the increase in the price there, but I also saw a report that said that the service is down by 2,000 subscriptions, and I just wondered, was that something we were expecting? Did that come out of the blue, that great drop in subscriptions, and what is the impact therefore on our financial situation on that? And my other question, I note today that Peterborough City Council has said it's had to suspend bulky waste collections from the doorstep at the moment because I believe it's because it's overwhelmed by requests for it. And is that a reason for concern? Is that service able to cope at the moment? Thank you.
Thank you. Is that going to go to Councillor Celesti?
Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Howe. I am delighted to say that since the last report was produced, we've had over 1,000 new subscriptions to the Brown Bin collection. And if this trend continues, I think we'll be up to the same as last year, if not more. I keep saying to everybody, it's such really good value for money. I know, I mean, my personal example is I pay for 2 brown bins, and I also pay an independent contractor for a private bin, which is twice the size of my brown bins, but I have to pay £18 every time they collect that bin, and I get that cheap. So, you know, I think the service that the council provides is excellent. I'd recommend it to anybody that has a garden that requires their garden waste to be taken away. As far as the pressure that Aragon is under, it's purely due to the fact that 2 members of staff have got the virus, and they are obviously poorly, and so the idea at the moment is they're not taking on any more appointments to collect waste, but they will honour the appointments they do have and collect what's already been arranged. So we are where we are. There's nothing we can do about the coronavirus. Hopefully this injection will help us all, and you know, we'll sort it out. But unfortunately, that's the way it is at the moment. Sorry, Councillor, can't give you better news than that.
Thank you, Councillor Seresti.
Okay, thank you. Just come in for a second now. I can see that there's going to be quite a few questions on this particular topic. So can you keep any preamble short and any introduction, so we can get straight to the nitty-gritty of your question and get a straightforward answer, if you would. Councillor Wiggin.
Thank you, Chair. I had a conversation with Councillor Seresti at Growth, Environment and Resources Scrutiny last night about the brown bins, where we heard about his garden. But he didn't answer my question then, so I'll ask it again. Has any cost benefit analysis been done on the possibility of scrapping the brown bin charge and the benefits that would bring in terms of extra recycling and reduction of costs for the council in terms of administering the charges and things like that?
Councillor Seresti.
Thank you, Councillor Wiggin. My answer is we did it in the past, and we even experimented with some issues, and they didn't work. It didn't make any difference. And quite frankly, this was all gone through about 3 years ago when I wasn't a cabinet member, and in the end, it was agreed and decided that the brown bin charge would help the city and help with our finances, because as you know, it's probably about £1 million.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ennis.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question and also got a recommendation, depending on the answer to the question. Recommendations are done at the end of this section?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, my question is as follows. Does the cabinet member agree with me that the impacts of the turning off of the lights at night will have a big effect on road and pedestrian safety, especially for shift workers? This is on page 52, Peterborough Highway Services, the first savings option. And also, does he think it will send out the wrong message about Peterborough? And will he agree to take out this option and find the money elsewhere in the budget?
Okay, so that's either.
Thank you.
I take it that's going to be Councillor Hiller.
Yes, I'm happy to answer Councillor Ellis's question. No, I don't agree that it will fundamentally affect road safety. There are many examples of where there aren't street lights on major roads and minor roads where there are no appreciable instances of any traffic accidents or whatever. With regard to sending out the message or the wrong message, no, I don't agree with that either. And I think it would be not a particularly good idea to consider taking out that saving at this juncture. No. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hiller. Councillor Ellis, have you got a comeback question with that?
Yeah, supplementary. Thank you, Chair. So does the cabinet member not does he not realise that switching off a light, especially in residential areas and semi-residential areas, at night, especially with you know, people and pedestrians and shift workers, will have a health and safety effect? And has there been any consultation or any look at this on the impact of what this proposed saving will do? And also on the point about the message, turn it off, you know, switch off the lights before you go, sort of message. Yes.
Sorry, Chair, I didn't understand the last bit of that question. But with regard to consultation and evaluation, yes, a great deal of evaluation has been done on the whole subject of dimming the street lights. You'll be aware there was a trial. Councillor Ellis, I don't know whether you were involved in that from a consultation point of view or a contribution point of view, but there was an extensive trial of dimming the lights and switching the lights off. A great deal of thought and research has gone into that. I answered your supplementary question with my first question, with my first answer. So I've got nothing more to add, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Sanford, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've got two questions. I'll ask them separately because they actually relate to separate sections.
Yeah.
Just following on from the previous question, though, on the street lighting, I think, yes, certain lights were dimmed by 40%, but we're now told that certain lights are going to be turned off completely. Now, I don't expect the cabinet member at this meeting to immediately produce a list of which ones those are, but before we get to take a vote on this at full council, can we be sent and with absolute clarity which lights are going to be turned off? Because if they're on some like remote stretch of highway somewhere, I can see maybe an argument for it. But you know, if they're going to be in our housing areas like past them, for instance, I would be really concerned about the impacts on public safety. So before we take a vote on this, can we be given some detailed information on what is proposed?
Councillor?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right,
so going on to my second question, which is about the brown bins. You know, Councillor Suresti was very selective in the information that he's just given to members, because he was saying that they've just recruited about 1,000 extra people, but the figures we were given at the Growth and Environment Committee last night showed that only round about 20% of households in Peterborough do have a brown bin. So the question comes, you know, where is all the garden waste going from the other 80% of properties that haven't got them? And we were also given information at the Growth and Environment Committee last night about the council's performance on recycling, because you know, this is where this is what I was getting at when I said earlier that giving Aragon an extra £1.5 million is effectively giving them a blank check, because what you're doing is you're actually underwriting and subsidising absolutely awful performance on recycling.
You should be asking questions.
We were. Sorry, I need to just give the context to this question there, because 20 years ago, we were one of the top 5 performers in we were one of the top 5 performers in the country on recycling. We're now under the actual average. And the key point is that what we were told at the committee last night was that for every 1% that our recycling performance drops, costs the council £48,000. So if we'd achieved our target of getting to 65% recycling, we would have in our budget an extra 1.25 million pounds. So my question is, you know, why are we giving Aragon all this extra funding rather than saying to them they have to improve their absolutely awful recycling performance?
Councillor Suresti, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Sanford. Well, we went through the recycling thing last night, as you very well know, and your question is why are we giving Aragon an extra £1.5 million and not telling them that they ought to do better on the recycling? I'm sorry if I'm repeating your question, but your sound was so bad, half of it I didn't pick up, so I just wanted to be sure that was your question.
The question is that if we are told that if every 1% we push up our recycling rate, it benefits us by £48,000, then if we were to continue, if we were still in the top 5 performers, we would be at 62%. So why are we only at 40%?
Well, as far as I mean, first of all, we give Aragon what they clearly need in order to deliver the service. They've been affected by the virus the same as everybody else, and they're under pressure the same as everybody else. If we don't give them the £1.5 million, then what you'll see is a huge swathe of cuts across the city, and I'm sure that we councillors will be the first ones to complain about it. As far as the recycling improvements are concerned, you know, we work very hard to try and get this up all of the time. Peterborough is part of the recap board. We have regular meetings on recycling. We meet with Viridor on recycling, and we do what we can. You know, if you've got any ideas that might improve our recycling rates, that won't actually cost us more in implementing the ideas than the benefit from the recycling, I'm happy to hear them. We are in the middle ground, as you've now agreed, about average on recycling rates in the country. And as far as I can remember from the table, there's probably only 1 or 2 councils in the entire country out of 345 councils that actually achieve 60%. The top 10 or 12 are all around about 50, and the difference between us and the top 10 is less than 10%. So, you know, I accept the criticism. We most definitely want to do better, and we will continue to try and do so.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor West. I think that's a good. Thanks for coming back. I've got Cabinet Councillor and Leader John Holditch has come on. John.
I just wanted to add that every round you put on, if you didn't charge for the brown bins and you did the same service, it cost you over £1 million. So you've got to find that million for a start. You've also got well over 5,000 properties in this town that can't have a brown bin because they're apartments or flats, and they would then be paying for a service that they can't have. So if people want that service, the principle is that, you know, if you want it, pay for it. Also, you've got to take into account that we built a waste to energy plant, and not strictly in the recycling tone. In fact, stuff's not being recycled, but the general waste is being burnt and brings us in millions of pounds a year. And I guess that some of that waste would go into other recycling things. But I have to say, and don't forget, we've been closed for 3 months this year, our recycling centre because of the COVID.
Yeah, and could just come back on that point then, Mr. Chairman, because that Councillor Holditch.
I don't want to be like this isn't council, this is questions. So as long as
Councillor Holditch has just revealed one of the reasons why we did have a target of 65% but we're now only on 40%. It's because of the brown bin charge, but it's also because we have an incinerator. We have to keep feeding placed into. So, you know, some of us actually predicted that if we built the incinerator, it would have an adverse effect on our performance on recycling, and that is precisely what has happened.
What's the positive side of it then?
Okay, can we move on from that then, because we should be questioning the budget. Thank you. Right, we've done page 52. We're going to move to page 53. Councillor Day, you're on 53.
No, sorry, I wanted to ask a question on page 60. Sorry.
Oh, we're way off that.
I know.
I'll come to you.
We've been talking about the things on those pages, just so that you know.
Okay, we'll come to it. We'll come to 60 in a while. Okay. So we're still 53. No, 54. There's nothing on that one. 55. 56. 57, 58, 59, 59, Councillor Robinson.
Yes, thank you. It's like playing fastest finger first, isn't it? So my question is about the care placements. I know on page 59 onto 60 that it's an extra 2 million for the next 3 years. Now it mentions in the report that this is due to pressure of extra young people needing placements rather than alternatives being found. And then it also mentions complex needs, as I know they're very expensive cases. So I wanted to know what was the breakdown between the two, considering 2 million is quite a lot of money. And of course, there's a report out today, I'm sure lots of you have seen, about how much money is made by the private industry for care placements. So I just wondered, is it perhaps something that we were considering actually doing in-house, you know, providing our own? Have we explored that? Because I wonder, with such huge costs, if not only might it save us some money, but given the things in the Commissioner's reports today, it might mean that we provided better care than some of these private places and met our goal of keeping young people closer to home, which provides them better care and also costs money for that department. Thank you.
Wendy Ogle-Wellborn, I believe, please.
Councillor Ayres, are you happy for me to take that question?
Yeah, please.
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Councillor Robinson, it's balanced, the 2 million. So some of it is around, we've increased in the number of placements we have, but only a small amount. I will give you an example that actually about 3 months ago, we actually had to accommodate a family of 9. So, you know, when you have to do that and it's going to be long-term care these children need, hopefully they'll get permanent. So all of a sudden that puts your costs up quite significantly, even if it's an in-house placement. So we have had some significant pressures this year, that being one. Also, we've had 2 or 3 placements where we've had to identify quite specialist placements in the independent sector. And I absolutely understand your thoughts about could we develop that in-house. The challenge there is, if I think of the 4 children that we've needed to put into residential provision, all of their needs are very different. And actually the providers that we've had to identify actually deliver different services. They have different skills within their residential setting. And that's always the problem, is we generally only place children in the independent sector where they've got incredibly complex needs and need very specialist placements that can identify those particular needs, not the more general residential placements, is what I would say. And also what we've said is that we are thinking about the additional placements we might need because of COVID. As we discussed at the Children's Scrutiny, there's been additional pressures on families, and we're predicting there may be another small increase in terms of children coming into care, and that's built into that figure as well. I hope that's helpful.
Thank you very much, Wendy. Thank you. Okay, moving on then to page 60. Councillor Day, did you have one on this one, please?
Yes, please. I'm just going to ask about the reduction in income from the sale of electricity from the energy from waste plant. It mentions something about, it mentions that the power generated by the facility is has fluctuated. I mean, has that gone down much? And it says that there's hope for improvement, as well as the cost of electricity, energy prices being lower. But I just wondered, in terms of generating electricity, have we thought about solar power, wind power, you know, not just, you know, put out on farm fields, or, you know, actually looking at retrofitting houses so that people have reduced heating, they can pay their rents more easily. You know, there's huge benefits, as well as creating and looking at using capital funding to support some of these ideas. But yeah, I just thought the sunlight might be a bit more, but I'd like to know why the energy's fluctuating, the power's fluctuating from the plant, really.
Okay, Councillor Celesti, would you like to answer that, or an officer?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, it's basically electricity prices are going up and down, also, although the trend is going up, and that's basically why the fluctuation in the energy. We are actually we have actually had a higher throughput of waste through the incinerator recently during the coronavirus pandemic. You know, it is something that will which will flatten out as we go forward. And you're absolutely right, Councillor. I'm with you 100% about, you know, can we look at wind power? Absolutely, we're looking at that. Not sure that we'd be allowed to do it, but we are most certainly looking at it and taking soundings. Solar power, you probably know that Peterborough is the best in the entire country for solar panels on roofs, but you know, there's always room for improvement, and we're looking for other options to do that. We certainly will be looking at things like, as you know, there's the special scheme where we're going to be running a heat pipe from the power plant all the way around the city, which will be a tremendous boost to anybody that can use it, because it will mean that A, the council will earn very considerably from that, but B, the customer will get cheap heat to do what they need to do, you know, even if it's heating a swimming pool, for example, which, you know, that kind of low grade heat is perfect for things like that, and for heating homes and stuff like that. So yeah, we're looking at these things all of the time. You know, we're looking at using our power and energy for vertical farming, etc. So I'm with you 100%. Anything that we can do that produces our own natural energy, I'm up for.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sanford.
Yeah, just on that point, I think it does, you know, the figures that we've got here does illustrate that the incinerator is actually failing to reach even the targets it was projected to. But just on this sort of wider point, Councillor Day has mentioned solar. I happen to be looking on the South Cambridgeshire sort of internet site, and it was advertised on there that Cambridgeshire County Council have actually entered into a scheme whereby they're gathering together a large number of people from across Cambridgeshire, and they're doing and they're actually getting a contractor to bid for providing large numbers of installations of solar energy for people that want to subscribe to it. Now, I actually understand, because I inquired about it, that Peterborough City Council is not participating in that. But is there any reason why we sort of aren't participating? Because it seems it could be really good for people in Peterborough.
Councillor Celesti.
I am not aware that we're not participating. I know we're in discussion, and we may have missed the first phase, but we will be participating in anything that is good for the city when it comes to renewables, as long as it's something that's possible. So not sure where, you know, I can understand you thinking we're not participating, but we are very much talking to people about what can be done and what we can take forward.
I think if I may, I think this follows an email that all councillors got asking whether or not we wanted to join. So I think there was a bit of a from Cambridgeshire. Is that right, Councillor?
Yeah, they. I think there's a bit of confusion on it because an officer basically circulated it to all Peterborough councillors, but then it was said it was only a Cambridgeshire scheme. So maybe if I can forward Councillor Seresti some information on that, maybe he could investigate it further.
That's okay.
Just got a further question. Going back to Aragon, not going back to the points on recycling, but we have got a figure here, and it says that we are proposing to increase the grant that we give to Aragon up by £1.5 million. Would it be possible before we get to full council, could we have a breakdown of sort of all of the items that are contributing to this? Because one of the things that's slightly confused me is that it says that additional investment is required, including the replacement of refuse vehicles and street sweepers. But surely, though, if you're basically purchasing new vehicles, that would be capital expenditure. So why is capital expenditure coming out of the revenue budget?
Councillor Seresti?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, you can have a breakdown as long as it's not commercially in confidence. You can have a breakdown of what the money is to be used for, and I suppose one of the reasons, and I'm not saying this is the reason, but one of the reasons why there would be the requirement for revenue is because we are exploring the feasibility of all of the types of vehicles. So at the moment, if I'm sure know as well as I do that to buy an electric refuse vehicle is very, very, very expensive compared to a standard diesel. And so what we're doing is we're having a really good look around to see what is available, what we should do it. And we certainly won't be replacing the fleet all at one go. We will be looking at trial. So we may buy one vehicle and try it all out and so on. And then you may buy a vehicle that's partially electric. We need to do it as quickly as possible, but we also need to get it right.
Okay. We've got Peter Carpenter, please.
I was just going to add that, as Councillor Seresti has said, we will be replacing the fleet and it will be on a staged basis. However, even though we buy things in capital, you still actually repay in revenue over a number of years.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Wiggin, then, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to ask, in response to Councillor Seresti's comments about the heat pipe scheme, when we're likely to see benefits in terms of council budget for that, when it's going to be online and generating income for us, and whether that will be within this medium-term period.
So Seresti.
Most unlikely. I can't see it being, I mean, assuming that we get all the rest of the money and the government continues to support it and everything else, I can't see it operational before 2023.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, moving on then, we're going to go to 61, 62, 62, Councillor Bisbee.
Thank you. My question is to with the collection of council tax, which actually goes over to the next page, 63, where it says that the government is allowing local authorities to do the collection over 3 years. I'm just wondering, will this impact on the precepts that were set by the police and the fire? And also, if we are in this situation next year, will that time to collect that be extended? Will it be compounded? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go to Councillor Seaton or Peter.
I would suggest Mr. Carpenter answers that.
Peter.
Thank you, Councillor Seaton. Thank you, Chair. Yes, Councillor Bisbee, it will be a significant issue for all those that will have who are paid through the precept. At the moment, it is for 3 years in terms of the reductions, and as you can see, council tax is 1.9% down in these papers. Business rates are about 20.6% down year on year in the bits we are collecting, and those have improved slightly, but it still means there's a deficit. The government stance at the moment is we will have to write that deficit over 3 years, and that affects both the council and also the police and fire authorities as well. I think you have a good point with the second issue that you raise. We don't know at the moment what non-collection is going to be next year and the year after. And if this scheme keeps rolling, we might well have a balance that is building up in terms of non-collectible debt, because also we'll have more people going on to council tax support as well, which of course means non-collectible, we pay for that. So it's an issue, and I know MHCLG are looking at the issue because it's raised quite a lot through a lot of the focus groups that they link into. I don't think there is a clear answer to the future years yet.
Okay, thank you very much. Rest of page 63. 64. Then we've got 65, 66, and 67, and 68 is blank. Okay, fair enough. That's that. Right. Okay. We've gone through all the questions. Were there any recommendations that want to be put forward on that section before I move on? Councillor Ellis.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, the recommendation which I mentioned before regarding Appendix C, page 52 to 53, the first option on Peterborough Highway Services. And the proposal is as follows: take out option to alter lighting levels or switch off lights altogether between midnight and 5 AM and offset this saving elsewhere in the budget.
Okay, fine. If you've got a recommendation, could you just put your hand down for a minute? I just want to see if we've got a seconder, please, for Councillor Ellis's proposal. Councillor Zinn.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, happy to second.
Okay, fair enough. Right, we have a recommendation put before us, which has also been seconded. If there are any objections to that, would you please put your hand up now? Okay. I don't know, Councillor Russell, would you like to speak, or are you just going to object?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question, please, Chair. If the lights are not dimmed, could Councillor Ellis say what saving would be put into the budget to compensate this saving?
I'm not sure he could. But anyway, Councillor Ellis, you have a right to respond. But...
Sorry, Chair, but it's always been that if we take a saving out, another one should be put in. So I'd ask the question, what saving would he put in?
Okay, Councillor Ellis.
I add to that, it will be detailed in the alternative budget proposals from the Labour Group.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Okay, so I saw another hand go up, didn't I? In who was objecting? Councillor Lane, are you objecting?
Yes, just objecting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rush. Were you just?
I was objecting to this because I would like to know what other saving would be put in before we vote on this.
Okay, Councillor Fox, you're objecting as well, I believe.
Yes, Chair. I mean, if you're going to take savings, you've got to find it from somewhere else, and if we need to know where that's going to be found.
Okay, well, we've got objections then, so we're going to move to the vote. Pauline, are you happy with what the proposal was, and then go to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. No, if I could just ask for confirmation of the proposal, just so I've got it clear before we go to the vote.
Okay, Councillor Ellis.
Yep. take out option to alter lighting levels or switch off lights altogether between midnight and 5 a.m. and offset this saving elsewhere in the budget. Basically, it's to take out the first option in the Peterborough Highways Services savings proposals on pages 52 to 53 on Appendix C.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Right, I will go straight to the vote. So I will read out each of your names, and if you could respond with either for, against, or abstention. Thank you. Councillor Aiken.
Against.
Councillor Barkham.
For.
Councillor Bisbee.
Against.
Councillor Sandra Bond.
For.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Burbidge.
Against.
Councillor Casey.
Against.
Councillor Coles.
Against.
Councillor Day.
I'm abstaining.
Councillor Dowson.
For.
Councillor Ellis.
For. For.
Councillor,
Somebody else said for me.
sorry, Councillor Ellis, obviously for, yes. Councillor John Fox.
Against.
Councillor Judy Fox.
Against.
Councillor Harper.
Against.
Councillor Haynes.
For.
Councillor Hemraj. Councillor Hemraj, sorry.
For.
Councillor Howard.
Against.
Councillor Howell.
Against.
Councillor Amjad Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jamil.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Lane.
Against.
Councillor Over.
Against.
Councillor Robinson.
For.
Councillor Rush.
Against.
Councillor Sanford.
For.
Councillor Simons.
Against.
Councillor Skibstead.
For.
Councillor Warren.
Against.
Councillor Wigan.
For.
Councillor Yazeen.
For.
Okay, have I missed anybody? Is that everybody? I think that's everybody I've counted on my list, so if you just bear with me. Okay, so I have, there are 14 for, 16 against and 1 abstention. So the motion is defeated.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on now. Councillor Seaton, you've put your hand up for some reason.
Yes, I was just going to highlight to the joint meeting that, of course, Councillor Ellis will have another chance at full council to tell us what he will cut to offset that particular proposal.
Yes,
and I'm sure we all look forward to that.
Yes, well, he has offered it,
Yes,
so
thank
we'll
you, Chair.
move on. Thank you.
We'll ensure it happens.
Thank you. Councillor Sanford, have you got a recommendation?
Yes, I have, but just to comment on what Councillor Seaton said, he's also at full council going to have to say what he's going to cut to make up the £35 million. So I think
yes, but
cuts both ways.
Can I have your proposal, please?
Yes, my proposal is that, and I think I may have got a commitment to this, but I'd just like to put it as a formal recommendation. Can the committee put a recommendation forward that in respect of the £1.5 million additional money going to Aragon, that we actually have an itemised breakdown of what that money is actually required for?
Okay, do you have a seconder for that, please?
Sorry, Chair, just one moment. Could I just clarify with officers, would that be an action that would be taken forward rather than a recommendation? Is that something that would, or do you need it, or would it need to be a recommendation?
I think if it's Steve Cox here, if it is the will of the group, then we can take it forward as an action.
Yeah.
But I think we would want to know that that's what the group would like.
Councillor Sanford, would you be happy with that?
Yeah, and I'm not really concerned what it's called, but I think, you know, if we are asking full council to commit to giving Aragon an additional £1.5 million, I think we need to know precisely what it's for. So.
Okay, fair enough. So we've got Councillor Wigan. Are you seconding the action?
Yes.
If it's an action, Chair, we wouldn't need to take a vote on it if Steve Cox agrees to provide that information.
You happy with that then, Steve?
I am. I think Councillor Seresti indicated that that can be provided where it's not commercially sensitive.
Okay.
Are you
Right,
happy with that,
Sanford, are you happy?
Yeah, fine.
Okay,
right,
we'll list
that's
that
that
as
one
an
done.
action then. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I have Councillor Seaton. Your hand's up again. No. Okay.
Apologies, Chair. I think that's a legacy hand.
Ah, right. Okay. Councillor Iqbal then.
Thank you, Chair. And for you, majority of you would agree that Councillor Seaton in his report has heavily blamed the pandemic as to where we are with the budget. And I think it would be reasonable and a good idea that Peterborough introduces an open access testing, as this would save lives, as well as deal with the economic issues in Peterborough.
Okay, I don't know if I really understand where you're coming from with that. Did Councillor Seaton?
I think that would be Liz Robin, I think.
Yeah, oh, sorry, Liz Robin, sorry. Dr. Robin.
Apologies, could you repeat the question, please?
The question is that Councillor Seaton in his report heavily relies or blames the pandemic where we are with the budget. And I was suggesting, why don't we have an open access testing in Peterborough where people could go and have their testing, and this will save lives as well as deal with economic issues. Is that possible?
Well, we do have a 7-day-a-week walk-in testing centre for people with symptoms in Peterborough, which is part of the national testing programme. So, and we also have the drive-through and the mobile testing unit. So for people who are symptomatic, we do have good access to testing in Peterborough. And I absolutely agree that's extremely important. And I would encourage people to go to get a test, because that's very beneficial. And then to self-isolate if they test positive. I think that there are some limitations as to what testing can achieve. There's also the absolute need for the other COVID-19 safe behaviours. So it's part of a range of interventions.
I'm still a little confused on this, Councillor. Are you proposing something in the budget?
It's just a suggestion that I just wanted to have a sort of a...
We're looking at recommendations now in the budget. Are you putting a proposal forward?
I think what Liz Robin has said, I'll withdraw it. Yeah, okay. I think she's convinced me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You can have other conversations and see how that works for later. That's good. Okay, Councillor Wigan.
Thank you, Chair. Relating to the brown bin fee increase on page 52, I would like the council to undertake review of whether scrapping the brown bin fee would generate greater savings than keeping and increasing the charge as proposed. And once we have this information, so that we actually have a definitive answer on it, rather than different councillors suggesting different values, and if it turns out that we're making a saving, to then implement this instead of the recommendation on page 52.
So can you make that clear for Paulina exactly what you want, please?
Yes, shortened version, please, Councillor.
Review the costs and benefits of scrapping brown bin charges.
Okay.
And if a greater saving to replace the proposal in the budget on page 52.
Okay, Paulina, have you got that?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So do you have a seconder, Councillor Wiggin?
So, Councillor Sanford, is that you?
That's me. Yeah, I'd actually like to second Councillor Wiggins' proposal. I think what he's saying makes absolute sense, because we've had we can throw arguments around all the time, but it's absolutely clear that that when the brown bin charge was imposed, there was a dramatic sort of reduction in the number of brown bins that people had. So we went from almost 100% of people having them to only 20%. So I think it's fairly clear that if the brown bin charge were to be taken away, there would be an increase in sort of uptake of brown bins. So I think what we're actually asking for is for that to be quantified in financial terms. Obviously, that would be offset by an increase in costs, but I think we do need an objective assessment, so that rather than just throwing these ideas around, we can actually be talking about hard and figures.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for seconding. Okay, so we've got a proposal and we have a seconder. Is there anybody who's objecting to that? Councillor Casey?
I'd just like to, I suppose I'd like to challenge the fact that 100% of the population had a brown bin.
We're not going to argue though, Councillor Casey, as to that.
No, I'm not arguing.
It was true at the start, wasn't it? Because it was given as a freebie to everybody, but so it's bending the numbers a bit. But
yeah, even the ones in the flats.
It wasn't 100%. So he's absolutely right on that point.
So
I think I'd object to actually that sort of detail being looked into at the moment, when we know that the figures are going to be skewed because of what's happened with the suspension and also the COVID.
Okay.
So
Okay,
I think I'd like to object.
Yes, okay. Councillor Bisbee, just one more now. That's it. Councillor Bisbee.
Yeah, I would like to object as well. I think that the officers and Councillor Seaton will have done their work on this as much as possible. So I would support them and go against this proposal. Thank you.
Okay, so we have objections. So Paulina, over to you, please, for the vote.
Thank you. We'll go to the vote now. Again, I'll call your name out and indicate if you're for, against or abstaining. So Councillor Aiken.
Against.
Councillor Barkham.
For.
Councillor Bisbee.
Against.
Councillor Sandra Bond.
For.
Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Burbidge.
Against.
Councillor Casey.
Against.
Councillor Coles.
I'm against, Paulina, thank you.
Councillor Day.
For.
Councillor Dowson.
For.
Councillor Ellis.
For.
Councillor John Fox.
Abstain.
Councillor Judy Fox.
For.
Councillor Harper.
Against.
Councillor Haynes.
For, thank you.
Councillor Hemraj.
For.
Councillor Howard.
Against.
Councillor Howell.
For.
Councillor Amjad Iqbal.
For.
Councillor Jamil.
For.
Councillor Jones.
For.
Councillor Lane.
Against.
Councillor Over.
Against.
Councillor Robinson.
For.
Councillor Rush.
Against.
Councillor Sanford.
I'm for.
Councillor Simons.
Against.
Councillor Skibstead.
For.
Councillor Warren. Sorry, Councillor Warren.
Against.
Thank you. Councillor Wiggin.
For.
Councillor Yazeen.
For.
Okay, I think that's everybody. If you just bear with me. Okay, so that's 17 for, 13 against, and 1 abstention. So the motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I've got Councillor Day, your hand's still up.
Yes, I don't think this is a recommendation or a proposal because I wasn't really planning to do that. But based on the first question I asked about those 4 options that we had and whether we would look at council tax rises or what are we going to look at to plug this deficit? Will we get this government funding? Often we don't know until we see the budget books and they're released. Some of these proposals, can we be updated as councillors on that? And I guess that's an action point. I'm not quite sure, but I just wanted to be updated on, what were the plans going forward, because, obviously we're in a really difficult position if we can't make the budgets balance.
Councillor Seaton.
I'm happy to give updates to councillors on our discussions with MHCLG as they develop. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Day.
Thank you, that's great, thanks.
Okay, Councillor Sanford, your hand's still up.
Sorry, I meant to take it down. Sorry.
Okay, fine. Okay, what we're going to do now is have a natural break because we've gone on for a little bit over 20 minutes or so over. So I'm going to go for about not quite 10 minutes. So could we resume around about past, please? So please stay online, just turn your sound and your videos off, and we'll see you at 8:30. Thank you.
think everybody's gradually coming back, Councillor Harper. If everybody could put their videos on, please, so that we know who's back. There's still one or two, Councillor Harper. I think we're live now again, aren't we, Dan? Thank you. Councillor Harper, if you wish to continue.
Yes, I'll continue now then. Okay, can everyone now note that we are now considering Appendix D of the Phase 1 proposal starting on page 69. This covers 69 and 70, so we'll take any questions on both pages straight away. Councillor Seaton, would you like to introduce, or would you like to go straight to questions?
Straight to questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions, please? No, okay, then we'll go to agenda item 9. So can everybody note that we are now considering Appendix E of the Phase 1 proposals starting on page 71, going through to 80. I'll take these a page at a time. Councillor Seaton, would you like to introduce this section or go straight to questions?
Straight to questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, right. 71 then. 72. 73. 74. 75. 76. 77. 78. 79. No, and page 80 is blank. There's nothing come through, so we'll move on. We'll go to, can everyone note that we are now considering Appendix F of the budget proposal starting on page 81 and finishing at page 96. Again, we'll take these a page at a time. Would any relevant cabinet member or lead officer want to respond to any of the questions as they come along? I take it there's no, you wouldn't like to introduce it at all. We go straight to questions. Everybody straight to questions. Okay. Page 81 then. Councillor Howell.
Thank you. I just wondered if it was an error, because this is about the Disability Forum infrastructure. And when you look down and it talks about male, female, it says the prison has both male and female inmates. And I noticed that line later on in it. I wondered if it was a cut and paste error. Because why are we talking about the prison when this is about Disability Forum infrastructure? So should that be taken out?
Wendy, well, please.
Yes, Councillor Howe, you're quite right. It absolutely should. Apologies.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so we can get that adjusted. Thank you very much, Councillor Howe. Okay, so that's 81. So we're now going to 82. Now 83. Councillor Howe, have you got your hand up again, or is that an old? Is that a no? Okay. 83. 84. 85. 86. 87. 88. 89. 90. 91. 92. Or 90. Is that 91, Councillor Ellis?
91, yes, on the quality impact assessment for the proposal to increase the brown bin charges. It says on there not applicable. However, given that some groups may perhaps more likely to be in financial pressures, and also are perhaps more likely to have more issues taking green waste down to the recycling centre if they, you know, if they can't afford the increase in the charges. What, you know, I would have liked to perhaps seen a little bit of information on here rather than just not applicable. Was there any work done on this, for example, particular age groups, disabled people, etc.? If I could just ask that question, please.
Yeah, Councillor Seresti, is that yourself?
Thank you. All I can say is that the discussions I've had is indicate that this particular group, very few of them would actually, if any, would need brown bins for garden waste.
Okay, fine. Could I ask, is James with us? I think I said he was, or not.
Yep.
Could you give us any more on that?
Yeah, so we have got a varied amount of people that currently use the brown bin service. We do make it accessible to all, so we do offer direct debit payments for people, so it splits the cost over a 3-month period. And we do also offer pull-out services for people that have trouble getting their bins out to the curbside. So we are assessing those groups and helping where possible.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Ellis.
Okay, just a supplementary. Has that earlier on we were told that that subscriptions are down by 2,000. However, there's 1,000 more new subscriptions, so a net decrease of 1,000, I presume. Has that? I mean, is there any feedback? Do we ask for feedback why people decide not to carry on with the scheme? If not,
That's not for this section. This section is the assessment.
It is.
You can answer if you want.
About the brown bins. So that perhaps we'll which can give us some information on there.
Councillor Seresti, you can answer.
Yeah, I was just unmuting myself. James, we discussed the numbers today. Have you got any further information?
Yeah, so I think we've seen a slight impact at the start because we've obviously due to COVID, we had the suspension and then we restarted the subscription year a bit later than normal. So normally we start it further on in the year. So I think what we normally find is we get a sudden surge of people to resubscribe and then we gradually see everybody else coming on throughout the year. So now we're getting to the leafing season, more people start to sign up again because I think actually it's good value. I don't have to keep going to the HRC to take my waste. So I think we will continue to see these sign-ups increasing throughout the year as we have done with other years.
Okay, thank you very much. So that would be 92 as well with that one. So 93, 94, 95, and 96 is blank. So we'll now move on from that one. Okay. Are we on 10 now? Sorry, I've lost my... Yeah, we've done 10, haven't we? Yes, 10. Okay, there's no recommendations in that section at all? No, because I didn't get anything from that. Okay, we'll move on to item 11 then. Can everyone note that we are now considering Appendix G of the budget, starting on page 97. Again, the relevant Cabinet member or lead officer will respond. Would any Cabinet member like to introduce this area or go straight to questions? Straight to questions?
Chairman, I'm quite happy to go straight through to questions.
Okay, then we'll go for 97 then. 98. 99. Carpty Parish Councillor June Ball.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is on highway services. When is the modelling likely to take place on changes to energy reduction and utilisation of different source materials to realise savings, please?
Who's going to? Who is going to answer that one? Peter, are you going to, or do you want me?
I was going to say, is that Peter? Councillor Hiller?
Yes. Can you repeat the question, June?
Yeah. It's when is the modelling likely to take place on changes to energy reduction and utilisation of different source materials to realise savings?
I don't know. I'll find out and I'll let you know.
Thank you. That will
Okay.
be an action then.
Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Sanford.
Yeah, my question's on page 99, which is place and economy brown bin fee increase in fees. It does concern me though. In quite, if you look throughout these tables, it says neutral, not applicable. And it says that for the brown bin increase. Now, we've actually been told that there's, whether it was due to the brown bin increase or whether COVID was involved as well, there has been a significant drop in the number of people using the brown bins. So what that means is that that material that would have gone into the brown bins is presumably now going into the black bins and going into the incinerator. So it seems to me that that is going to lead to an increase in carbon emissions. So how can the impact be neutral?
Okay, Councillor Smesty.
Well, I mean, I don't agree with everything that Councillor Sanford said, but there is clearly no doubt that some garden waste has turned up in the black bins in exactly the same way that food waste still continues to be deposited in black bins. I don't think you can actually say that this was because there's been an increase in the price of the collection for brown bins, because it's only just started. And only started a few months ago. So, I mean, I completely agree that we should put something in there rather than NA, but I don't think it is significant.
I had for a minute there, James Coleridge came in. Did you still want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to add that we have asked the ERF operators that operate the crane facility there if they had seen a increase in organic waste coming through the energy from waste plants, and to date they haven't seen an increase coming through from the black bin. So not saying that none's going in there at all, but they haven't seen a vast increase in organic waste.
Okay, thank you very much.
It seems to me that that either people are not going to be generating the garden waste, so it seems a bit odd because plants are still continuing to grow. So I just think what you ought to be saying in that table is maybe we don't have sufficient information at the moment, but to actually say categorically that it has that it doesn't have any impact, I think is not quite true.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Sanford. I've got Councillor Bull come through on the top line again. Councillor Bull, have you got a question on this one? Or is that an old hand, as they say? Right, you've gone. Councillor Wiggin.
Thank you, Chair. Just so I can confirm my understanding. On the page 99 on the Aragon line, the Aragon budget increase mentioned the fleet refurbishment. So does the carbon assessment being neutral, does that indicate that there's no change to what was already planned and that future benefits from lower emission vehicles, for instance, are already taken into account in this?
I think that might be James, is it?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So obviously we are looking at vehicles with Aragon at the moment, but it's neutral. It will be still an impact on carbon, but we are looking, as Councillor Seresi said, we're looking at electric vehicles, we're looking at hybrid vehicles. So we haven't got the definitive of what's going to be put in place at the moment, but we are looking at all the various options.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sanford, your hand's still up. Have we got another question on 99?
No, but I just think I just think it's a further example of what's indicated in this table is not actually true, because because we're actually told that one of the reasons that you're going to be replacing the vehicles is that you want to have more energy efficient ones, but then we're told in this table that that's not going to have any impact on carbon emissions. So both of those can't be true.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to come back on that at all, James or Councillor Swesty?
We're nitpicking. We don't know when these vehicles are going to come in place. We don't know whether we will be able to fund them, and we actually don't know what kind of vehicles we're going to have. So, we can put in there an explanation that's 56 pages long if you wish, but quite frankly, it's a waste of time.
Okay, we'll move on then. Page 100. Page 101. And page 102. Okay, fine. Thank you very much for that one. There's no recommendations come forward on that one. I appreciate some comments. Okay, so we'll move on to item 12 then. So that effectively is all the items gone through now. Yeah, G, we've gone right through that. So we're on to the last item, which is item 12, which is effectively any general comments or overall recommendations to the item 4. Councillor Co-op Parish Councillor June.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council has presented a number of options to NHCLG to balance the 21-22 budget, like providing additional unring fence funding, allowing council the powers to use debt financing, allowing council to take a 1-year holiday on MRPP, and allowing a 1-year holiday on pension fund payments. Should councillors and cabinet members consider a percentage reduction on their allowances for a year to assist with income generation?
Well, I'm going to ask Councillor Seaton. I don't know if you can really put comment on that. It's a suggestion. You can comment if you wish. We're all biased in a way, aren't we, to that?
Oh, I absolutely agree with Councillor Bull, but there are 60 of us, so I think it's an individual decision, isn't it?
That's what I mean. You can't really comment for others because everybody's got their own comment. So
I think it would be a good idea to have it as a corporate suggestion and be looked at, say, at next council meeting, because we're all in this together, aren't we? We can't just rely on central government funds. We can't just rely on our own savings and realisation of income streams. We have to be in it all together, don't we? And that would actually be a signal that we are prepared to commit our own SRA, part of our own SRAs towards income.
So can we put that? Can I ask you to do that as a recommendation at the end of this? Yeah, if you want to recommend it.
Certainly.
Okay, fine. Councillor Bisbee.
Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chair. Unfortunately, as a co-operative member, Councillor Bull can't put forward a recommendation because she has no voting rights.
Good point. Yeah, sorry. My apologies, everybody. You may need to lobby somebody else to do that for you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Bisbee.
Thank you. Could I confirm that last year when we changed the IT for the council, that enabled the council to work more remotely? So in a way, it's actually saved us money that we would have had to pay out immediately to be able to work remotely because of COVID.
Yeah, if you can just hold a minute, Councillor. Councillor Dowson, if you can hear me, would you mind turning your mic off, please? We're getting quite a bit of feedback from you. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Seaton, could you answer Councillor Bisbee at all?
Sorry, Chair, I was just having one or two technical problems. Could Councillor Bisbee just repeat that?
Yes, certainly. Councillor Bisbee.
Thank you. It's just about the IT that we did last year. We changed IT again last year. would you say that changing it before COVID by accident has actually saved us money? Because otherwise we'd have had to change it now anyway to allow the working that people are doing
Yes.
at home.
Okay. I'm going to come in again. I do apologise. Councillor Seaton, I hope you heard, but if please, if any member has got their mic on, can you turn it off, please? We're getting quite a bit of feedback, which is holding up the meeting. If you're not actually,
Councillor Farouk had his microphone.
Okay, it's gone a lot quieter now. Councillor Seaton, did you get that?
Councillor Holditch.
I did. I think it's a fair question, and I'm not sure the exact answer to that. I would expect things like Zoom, certainly we're using Microsoft Teams, and that has been really invaluable. Whether there's a similar option on there, Google, and whether that would have worked as well is difficult to say. I would imagine Zoom would have worked on Google. So very good question. Probably an interesting one for someone like Sue Grace to respond to.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Sue's on the call. I don't think she is.
Isn't she? She is. Sue Grace, yes, please. You are. Your hands up.
Hello. Yes, just my understanding of the question. Sorry, if you could repeat the question, that'd be really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, the question is, we changed back to Microsoft last year. Doing that, was that actually it's worked out as a financial saving because we wouldn't have had the opportunity to work remotely as we have done in this period?
Thank you. Well, certainly one of the issues when the council was using Google was we also still had to invest in Microsoft licenses because there are a number of local authority applications that still required Microsoft licenses. So by moving wholly to Microsoft and to Office 365, which obviously includes the Teams video conferencing facility, we have been able to strip out some of the license costs, the duplicate license costs that we did have when we had to maintain licenses for Google and for Microsoft as well. So that has contributed to some of the savings that we're able to achieve. And certainly Teams is not just a video conferencing tool, but it's got other facilities that have been using it. And clearly, Zoom has been a very effective tool for us as well during the pandemic. So I hope that helps to clarify some of those points. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Bisbee.
Yes, thank you. It was just to acknowledge that there was a saving by doing that last year.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Dowson.
Yes, I have a query, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. It's about the Hilton Hotel. I'm wondering, is it a British registered company or is it offshore?
Peter or Councillor Seaton, can you answer that?
Loaning money to companies which are offshore and have legally are different positions. Sorry.
Councillor Seaton or Peter, whichever.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding is British registered. I, in fact, when we did it, I had people contacting me who'd looked at Companies House and the details on there.
Yeah. Did Peter just say yeah? Then was that what Peter said? Yes. Yes. Okay. Right. Thank you. Got your answer. Thank you, Peter. Okay. Right. So we've got Cabinet Member Wayne Fitzgerald. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Thank you, Chair. Just a small comment, even though Pauline has corrected June about the process. I would remind members, actually, probably it's not the forum to discuss allowances and everything else. You'll all have received an email recently about the independent panel that sets allowances. So any recommendations, such as the one as June was alluding to, surely should go to that panel. And we are all in it together. June's not been on the council for a while, so I'll enlighten her that actually a lot of our costs have been stripped out in terms of IT, phones and other things, and I've made it known personally, I don't have any of those devices, so we are saving money. And if somebody wants to take a corporate policy and we're all in it together, perhaps we should recommend perhaps the staff take a 1% pay decrease, as perhaps they would in the private sector, because if we're all in it together. So I'd just like to make the point, we are not in charge of allowances, the independent panel is, and if anybody's got anything to put to them, I suggest they do so.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Councillor Sanford.
Yes, very surprisingly, at the end of the meeting, I agree entirely with what Councillor Wayne Fitzgerald has just been saying. I think, you know, I personally would argue that there is a case for reducing maybe the number of special responsibility payments that we have, but you know, that is something that really needs to go before the independent panel, because you know, the thing that we really need to avoid happening is for councillors to be seen to be determining what councillors are paid. That is something that should be for the independent panel.
Thank you, Councillor Sanford. Sue Grace, I've got your hand up again. Oh, it's gone down now. Okay, Councillor Sanford, have you finished your comment? Yes. So, Councillor Haynes, please.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering, we heard from Councillor Seaton and on page 9 of the report that by external benchmarks, our unit costs are some of the lowest in the sector. And maybe this is me being relatively new and having been kind of isolated from people, but I read that and think, well, how are our services performing according to external benchmarks? And I didn't know if maybe there is somewhere we can go, or if it can be included in the future budget reports, a kind of summary of how external inspections and things have found our services, because I know I hear about my little scrutiny committees and the inspections they get, but I don't hear very easily about inspections according to other scrutiny committees and departments, and it would just be useful and might be good to see how services are performing according to, as we carry out all these cuts.
Okay, I've got Wendy Ogle-Wellborn wanted to come on that.
Councillor Haynes, I'd be happy to provide you the adult and children benchmarking with the outcomes as well. So basically, we're low spend, but with good outcomes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Fitzgerald.
Chair.
Oh, sorry, hang on a minute. Yes.
Sorry, can I just say, I mean, yeah, because we get regular information from the scrutiny committees I sit on, but are there not other inspections that happen with other parts of the council, with other services, so that we can see, you know, a nice summary of how the services have been inspected most recently and how the services compare to external benchmarks?
Chair, I was going to pick up that.
Yes, go on then. Yeah, Councillor Fitzgerald.
Hi, Councillor Haynes. It's Councillor Fitzgerald. Sorry. There are a variety of benchmarking and data sets within the council. Whether or not they're all in one nice handy pack, as you're suggesting, is probably not the case. But you will know that we're audited every year, and I make a point of telling everybody that the auditors say we're a very well-run council. I don't say that, just ask the auditors. I think Wendy's also spoke about, you know, some of the testing and audits that are carried on in children's and adults in terms of Ofsted and the Care Quality Commission, etc. So there are a number of things. Our planning team also, you know, are subject to audit. But Grant Thornton, I'm sure if you had a chat with Gillian, she would give you a lot of information about Grant Thornton, who did a lot of work with the council in terms of how we know we're a high-performing council at low costs, because Grant Thornton told us so, because they go out and they benchmark against other councils, which is how we know how good we are. And I'll point to one that Peter will be very proud of yet again. You know, we're the best highways authority in the UK. That's how we know that we are good at doing stuff as well as low cost. But you're right, whether that's in one place, and it would be a job for officers to do, but frankly, there is enough information around already. If you want to find it, you will find it. Because I wouldn't want officers at the moment spending time on that kind of stuff when we're in the middle of this COVID pandemic, to be perfectly truthful. I'm not, you know, saying it's not warranted, but whether or not now's the time, I don't really know. But that information is across the council, but you just might find it by talking to different people.
Councillor Seaton.
Chair, thank you, Chair. I think this was actually one of the things that we submitted to MHCLG, were examples of how we perform as a council. And I'm very happy to share that with all my fellow councillors. You know, I think it's there, and there's some really good examples. Let's circulate it.
Okay, I don't want to do so at this point. So is anybody else, are all the hands going up for something different? So we'll go back to Councillor Haynes. Councillor Haynes, would you be happy with that from Councillor C?
That would be great. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Wendy, are you on the same point or something different? Oh, you're gone. Councillor Seaton, I take it you're about to go off. Councillor Sanford then.
Yeah, I just got a different point I wanted to make, really. Can we be assured that the Cabinet is exploring all possible sources of a sort of actual income? Because, and I just want to quote a specific example, because we were talking earlier about Aragon. Now, one of the things that Aragon does is they do landscape work, which involves doing things like, pruning trees and hedges and things like that. And what I see happening is that, when they've been doing some pruning on a shelter belt, they grind up all the materials and just spray them on the ground. Well, isn't that a valuable material? Couldn't they be having it made into wood pellets, or couldn't some of it be sold as timber? So that's an example, but I'm sure there are other areas that could be explored.
Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Seaton now. Councillor Seaton, can you generalise that as you were exploring all possible routes of income and sources?
Quite frankly, I think Councillor Sanford would be astonished at the routes of possible income that we explore. It's wide and varied. Okay. But as I've said before, we have a cross-party budget working group. Councillor Sanford, if you stayed on it, you could put all those forward. We'd be delighted to hear them. Just send them to me.
Yeah.
Just send them to me. If people have got ideas, send them to me and we'll look at them. Welcome them. Absolutely welcome them.
Thank you very much. Councillor Seresti, I've got your hand up.
Thank you, Chair. We explored what was just suggested by Councillor Sanford. In fact, I suggested it quite a few months ago, because I have a wood burner, so I'm interested in wood, and it was looked at very carefully, and the volume that we have we just wouldn't pay. So unfortunately, we'd be losing money. It is a valuable commodity, but we don't have enough of it to make it a business. So thank you for the idea, Councillor Sanford, but it won't work. And may I also say, in response to Councillor Terry Haynes, we mustn't forget that we probably have the best bereavement service in the country, and we keep winning all the top prizes. So there's a place where you can go and find out about how we do things really, really, really well.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Wiggin.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Fitzgerald, I believe it was, mentioned Grant Thornton. I've been concerned to read recently that their audits on the public sector have been criticised by the Financial Reporting Council as requiring significant improvement. Can Cabinet members and officers, if appropriate, reassure us that they are happy with the work that Grant Thornton has done for us, that it meets the required standards, and that it is value for the large amount of money we have paid them?
Okay, that's going to be the last question as well. So, Councillor, well, I guess it's Councillor Seaton, isn't it? for that one?
Well, I think the first point is they don't audit our accounts.
Correct.
It's Ernst & Young and do that. However, Grant Thornton are acknowledged as an expert in local government. They helped us find 33 million of savings. They helped us with the lean review that found another 12 million of savings. Is that good value for money? I think it is. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. Have you got anything to add to that?
It was just to add, really, but the Councillor Wiggins question just really, shows the level of understanding about how this council functions financially and operationally. You have no clue as to what role Grant Thornton were playing or who the auditors are. And really, you should do. To say something like that is inexcusable. But I wanted just to say, Chris, that this council receives over £80 million of external income. Peter Carpenter, if I've got the number wrong, nod your head. So when we talk about what the revenue, there or thereabouts, when we talk about opportunities that the council should take in revenue generation, be assured we're already doing pretty well. But let me tell you, and Nick, I will tell you, a couple of times you've mentioned Aragon. I chair the shareholders subcommittee of the cabinet, which has responsibility for all our relationships with what was formerly Vivacity and now has gone into Peterborough Limited. So an Aragon, Opportunity Peterborough, NPS, all the relationships we have, and they all have business plans. Now, had you been or read the papers for Aragon, you will see that they themselves have a target for external income and growing their revenue, as do all our relationships with these organizations, businesses that we contract with. And really, folks, it's already there. That information is public. It was published, and you can go and look at it now. So if you want to know what Aragon plans are, please read the papers.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Joe. I'm not going to go any further. I've said that was the last question. That's the last answers now. I'm going to draw it to a close. It's gone 9 o'clock now. Thank you ever so much for all your input. There's been some great questions in that and some great answers. As has been mentioned, it's really important we try and work together on this from all parties' point of view. We do need to put in these ideas. And as has been mentioned, if we take stuff out, we have to put other stuff back in, or vice versa. So, I'd ask you all, please, to work together to let's get this budget sorted out and hopefully passed at full council. Again, thank you everybody for coming. Thanks to the officers. Thanks for obviously the cabinet and members for all turning up. And thanks again for your questions. And I wish you a good night. I hope you